Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back to the Wholehearted Journey. My name is Meredith Hudson, and y'all gotta buckle up because this episode is gonna be so packed with a lot of information. And I'm excited to talk about it because a lot of people assume because I lost 120 pounds naturally that I am like anti GLP-1s. And I'm going to be completely transparent. When GLP-1s first came out, I was anti GLP-1s because just like any girl who's been on a weight loss journey her entire life, she has been deeply let down by weight loss medications. I mean, let's talk about phentermine. Let's talk about the HCG shot. But the GLP-1s are different. And I am so excited to kind of go into it because my whole thing as a coach, as a woman, as a friend, just anything in general is I am pro lifestyle change. So just because I lost 120 pounds naturally does not mean that I am anti GLP-1s. I am for lifestyle changes. Now, I know a lot of us are kind of icky about the topic. I know a lot of us are not happy about it, and that is because of a lot of different reasons. People are abusing the medication. People are not following through with actual real and raw lifestyle changes. They're just shooting up this shot, calling it a day, and they're walking around under eating and dropping weight and losing muscle and doing things that are extremely unhealthy. So there is a lot that goes to the GLP-1. But what my opening statement here is that not everyone who is taking a GLP-1 is in the same circle. That is, I think, the most unfair thing to do because what you're doing while you're on one and also what your actual medical condition is plays the biggest roles on how your body actually responds to a GLP-1. So that's what I'm here for. Anyone that follows me, anyone that I'm coaching currently knows that I am all about understanding the body. And when it comes to GLP-1, baby girl, you best to know your body. You best to know what's going on in your body. And sadly, I think that's our biggest struggle is knowing maybe what's going on inside our body. I think a lot of people are not diagnosed with PCOS or insulin resistance, and they're kind of just like walking around their life struggling and not really understanding their body because getting answers from a doctor is really, really hard. And that is why so many people are investing in naturopaths and functional medicine doctors and literally spending every dollar they can to get an answer. And so it is hard and it does suck, but I'm going to uncover and unpack a lot in this. And I want you to be able to walk away from this podcast truly understanding what a GLP-1 is, how it really is something that can be a great tool that can help people, but also go into it with understanding that it's also not for everybody. And it could be completely pointless for a big percentage of people using it. That's the tea, bestie. That's the tea. So I am going to be covering what does a GLP-1 do? How does it help? How to use a GLP-1 the most effective way. If you're on a GLP-1 and don't implement key elements, what happens? Also, I'm going to break down what studies are showing when it comes to especially, weight gain after coming off a GLP-1 and also what happens like with the imbalances that are created as well. And I'm also going to talk about why GLP-1s aren't for everyone as well. So that pretty much is going to be answered by the time we even get to that point. You're going to be already kind of connecting the dots and understanding like, oh, yeah, GLP-1 isn't probably necessary for me, and I need to probably just keep doing my thing and trusting the process and go from there. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the 3 pillars that make up this medication. What does it actually do? Do we know? I feel like so many people don't even know, even people who are on the medication itself, aka I know some people in my life, and that's no shame. That's just coming down from being put on a medication and not even understanding like what it does within your body. But this is so important because one, you need to know what you're putting in your body and what it's doing in your body. But most importantly, this is going to be a key fundamental aspect to being able to maintain your weight loss is by knowing this information as well. So the very first one is going to be the way that it actually balances out your hunger hormones. So AKA your ghrelin and your leptin. This is an imbalance that majority of people struggle with and literally are never educated on. I found this extremely fascinating because when I was going through my 120-pound weight loss journey, I struggled severely with binge eating. And I struggled with binge eating for a huge part of my life. And I always thought it was because of me. I just love food. I have this addiction to it. I'm just obsessed with it. And there can be, of course, a mental aspect to it. And there's always going to be a little bit of a mental aspect to it, or a mental emotional aspect to it, if you will. But the biggest issue here is the underlying issue that you have an actual imbalance within your body, and it's creating this imbalance in your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. So when these two things are imbalanced, you are going to be experiencing a very large amount of food noise. You are never going to be able to recognize when you're full. You're always going to be hungry. You're going to have insane cravings. And yeah, that is the whole mystery around food noise, right? But it also can be the other way around too. People can have almost the reversed effect of having another type of imbalance in your hunger hormones, where it is very difficult for you to have an appetite. It is really hard for you to actually eat. It's the same thing, but it's just a different imbalance. So when you're actually on a GLP-1, what it does is it forces your body to regulate these hunger hormones. So that is why, for the first time ever, you're free from this food noise, binge eating, and food addiction cycle. But it's also very important to know that this is only balanced while you're on the medication, which we will get to, later on into this podcast as well. Now, the second thing is it actually helps your pancreas increase insulin. So this is when the PCOS girlies, the type 2 diabetes, the insulin resistant people shine. So let's make this extremely simple. When you're consuming heavily processed food or really high in sugar amounts, what you're doing is you're creating this glucose spike, okay? And when you have a glucose spike, your body's insulin is supposed to kind of just grab that glucose and bring it back down. Now, when you are having glucose spike over glucose spike over glucose spike day in and day out because you are consuming a lot of sugar and you're consuming a lot of processed food, aka that's why so many of us are insulin resistant and why I was insulin resistant before I started my weight loss journey, right? Is that over time, your insulin gets so sick and tired of your BS. And it's you know what? You just do your thing, glucose. You just do you, boo-boo. You stay up here. You stay up there. I'll let you do your thing. And so what happens is your insulin levels pretty much stop doing its main role to bring your glucose levels down, so your glucose levels stay high. So when you are taking a GLP-1, what it does is it forces your insulin levels to stay with it, to be a real bestie, no matter how much it doesn't want to. So this solves the whole issue when someone is insulin resistant or someone who is struggling with PCOS and is having insane symptoms and their blood sugar and everything else is out of whack. It helps solve that. And people who are, of course, diabetic or pre-diabetic, it solves this issue to where their body is doing what it's meant to do. But there's a lot to that. Again, we're going to talk about at the end of this. Now, the last role that this does is it slows down digestion. Basically, your stomach muscles kind of just relax. They straight up chill. And so everything is kind of just breaking down a little bit slower. So it helps you avoid, again, glucose spikes, and it helps your body be able to process and break down, what you're eating and absorb the vitamins and minerals that you're consuming and those amino acids from your protein and so forth. But the reason why a lot of people actually sometimes have side effects, and I'm not a doctor, but this is kind of just common knowledge to me, is that some people really do struggle with breaking down protein, high protein. Some people's bodies just do not respond well to that. It is a very, very, very small amount of people, but when you are taking a GLP-1 and you already have this system that struggles with breaking down food accordingly, and you take a GLP-1 that slows things down even more, you're kind of putting yourself in a situation to be backed up. And when we say backed up, we mean backed up. I don't know if y'all know what it's like to be extremely constipated, but I know every woman that has had a child and been on painkillers afterwards pretty much knows the situation with constipation. Okay, but it's not a great thing to be backed up. Obviously, you need to be going and going and going. And so if you're not going, then that's kind of like a red flag that something is off. And so when you're on a GLP-1 and you're experiencing like actual issues there, then that's kind of where it can really backfire on you. Okay. But those are the three pillars, the three roles that a GLP-1 does. That's it. I know that you're thinking, that's it, Meredith, that's crazy, that's amazing. Yes, it is amazing, but it's also a huge reason why it's also not for everybody. Like if we are not struggling with insulin resistance, or we do not have issues with our blood sugar, and we don't have struggle with like food noise, and we also are, pretty much on a good track with, our nutrition and everything, and so the bowel movements are flowing and doing its job, then a GLP-1 pretty much at the end of the day becomes pointless. It's not necessary. You're kind of just putting something in your body that your body doesn't even need because your body's already balanced. It's already doing what it needs to do. So the biggest people that this helps are people, like I said, who are insulin resistant, type 2 diabetic, pre-diabetic, and anyone that has PCOS. Okay. Now, to use a GLP-1 correctly, the way that it is meant to be used, to where you are not abusing it. You are not doing something that is going to backfire on a bestie in the worst way possible. You have to implement the biggest thing, lifestyle changes. Like you have to work just as hard as everybody else on a weight loss journey. That's why I hate when people sit there and say like people who are on a GLP-1, like it's just the easy way out. It's not an easy way out because you literally only have two options here if you're on a GLP-1. You can take a GLP-1 and not do the hard work like everyone else is doing, like making all the lifestyle changes, eating your calories, tracking your calories and macros, and doing your workouts and prioritizing your sleep and your water. You either have to take a GLP-1 and still do that, or on the flip side, you can take a GLP-1, not do any of those things, and face some serious medical conditions, imbalances, and weight gains afterwards, to where you then become extremely reliant on something that is not good for you to continuously lean back onto, right? Like no one wants to do a GLP-1 forever unless they medically have to. And I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit because some people do genuinely have to be on a GLP-1 forever. But when you're finding yourself in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and like you're young, you're thriving and you're doing all these things, you don't want to be on a medication forever. Like at some point you're going to get to a place and be like, bro, I don't want to keep taking this shot. I don't want to keep relying on this. Like you're going to get to a place at some point in your life and say, I'm done with it. And coming off of it, especially if you've been on it for an extended amount of time, that can be a really difficult process because the longer you're on it, the more that your body kind of tends to rely on it unless you have implemented all the lifestyle changes and you have really focused on all the things that we all at the end of the day cannot escape from. We have to do it no matter what. And that's just coming from a girl that understands what it's like to be struggling with their weight. I have PCOS. I understand what it's like to have insulin resistance. I understand how difficult it is to face not only the fact that you have to lose over 100 pounds, but I also know what it's like to overcome and battle binge eating. I know what it's like to live in food noise. I also know what it's like to have imbalances in the body. I also know what it's like to have severe PCOS symptoms from chronic acne, inflammation, like overall mood swings, like every symptom that you can think of. So that is why I was so excited to do this GLP-1 chat, because it's like, why not hear it from someone that technically a GLP-1 would be essentially made for, and talk about it because I am a coach, and although I have solved all of these issues on my own, losing 120 pounds, overcoming binge eating, building the relationship with food, turning off the food noise, balancing out my PCOS, and actually having a consistent period for the very first time in my entire life, ovulating, I'm no longer insulin resistant, and it all strictly comes down to the habits that I implemented through my nutrition and everything else. But it is hard. It's a journey, bro. It's a journey. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, if I can do it, you can do it. You can. You can. But it is really, really, really hard. But I think the most important thing here is understanding that a GLP-1 is a tool. And it is a tool that can be something that can be extremely beneficial for you. But it can also be the worst thing that you have ever done at the same time, especially if you are someone that is struggling with actual medical conditions. If you take a GLP-1 and you abuse it, you don't care for your body, you don't implement the lifestyle changes, girl, you're not only making your situation worse for the long haul, but you're ultimately wrecking your metabolism from all the muscle mass that you're losing. And every time that you lose muscle, you also have to remember that you're going to lose bone mass too. Muscle mass and bone mass go hand in hand. You're also going to have vitamin dysentrophies, and you want to make sure that your vitamins be vitamin in your body, because then we're talking about your energy is going to be hit. You're going to be mood swinging like the most severe PMS ever. Your skin's going to get affected. Your hair's going to be affected. Like, your overall quality of life gets affected when you have vitamin dysentrophies. Like, you really can feel like a completely different person. And that can also take a massive hit to your mental health as well. So trust me when I say implementing all the right things and knowing that you're implementing all the right things is important. Okay? Just girl to girl, coach to my friend on the other end. I don't want to keep seeing what I have been seeing from people who are taking GLP-1s and that are coming into my program. So many of these girls are like, I've lost like 60 pounds, but 20 pounds of that 60-pound loss is muscle mass. And y'all, that is a massive devastation, because they are actually having real life issues like going on. They're struggling. Like, I don't know how else to say it without like putting too much like of their like personal stuff out there, but they're struggling. And now they're trying to reverse, kind of like this damage that has come from misusing the tool. But you know what is super unfair? I don't think this is something that we need to sit there and be like, how dare you? You didn't eat, you didn't do this. It really comes down to the lack of education that doctors who are prescribing it are giving to their patients. Like, if I was not a health coach that was extremely well-rounded in women's health for one, but I'm talking about all over like body, and on top of that, extremely knowledgeable about nutrition, extremely knowledgeable about fitness, and everything else in between, like knowledgeable about health, there's no way I would know how to use a GLP-1 properly, and I would not know how to ensure that the nutrition that I was eating was the right amount of nutrition. And I also wouldn't really know how to maintain my muscle mass while being on a GLP-1. I just simply wouldn't. And so that is the problem. That is why we're having these issues where so many people who are coming off GLP-1s, not only are they like really battling and like struggling with an insane amount of muscle loss, an insane amount of bone loss, and now their like 30-year-old body is like more closer to like a 60-year-old body because of the impact that it's had and the like increased loss of very important like parts of your body that is needed for overall health and well-being. We don't want to be fragile. We don't want to like move wrong and feel like we're breaking a dang rib or walking around just like feeling so much older. And that's the best way that I can describe it. Like, people really, really just struggling to do their day-to-day life after experiencing this like massive loss and these like serious like hits health-wise from using the tool unknowingly, inappropriately. That's the best way to say it, right? It is not their fault. And if you do know all this information, I highly doubt anyone would say, you know what, I know all this and I still don't care. And if they did, then they're feeling the heat from that, situation. They're gonna feel the fire of that. And that is a extremely difficult journey to go on. But if you are using a GLP-1 and you are using it strictly as a tool, and you are implementing all the right things, you're eating the right nutrition, you're eating the right amount of calories, you're prioritizing those beautiful macros, you're prioritizing your protein, your fiber, you are already, especially if you're coming from a side of like insulin resistance and like diabetes and even PCOS, people who have PCOS and are insulin resistant, like already prioritizing their sugar intake, those things. Like if you are implementing all these right things in your weight training and you're drinking your water and you're getting the right amount of sleep, this can be actually life-changing. It can. Now, let's talk about studies that show, I went ahead and wrote this down. Studies show that about 65 to 80% of weight loss after coming off of a GLP-1 is regained. Okay. Within 12 months after stopping it, that is kind of the statistics. I suck at saying that word. But that's the data. Most regain starts within the first 3 to 6 months, which makes sense because you probably still have a little bit of the medication kind of lingering in your system and you don't really feel the full effects until you probably get closer to this time. It's kind of just like birth control. That's the best way I try to describe this to people in a very simple, short way, is that when you take birth control pretty much tells your body what to do and what not to do, right? It's the same thing as a GLP-1. The GLP-1 is telling your body what to do and what not to do. And as soon as you come off of it, all of those underlying issues that you have been struggling with, those imbalances and the way that your body actually naturally operates comes back to life, right? So all of that kind of comes piling back on you. My dad, he is diabetic. And he did Ozempic. I think it was like maybe a year and a half ago now. He lost 70 pounds quick. And no shade to my daddy if he listens to it. I love you so much, but you got to be an example here, my man, okay? He did not listen to me, for one. And he just did not eat. He had like one meal a day. Homeboy was just like, I'm not hungry and it's hard for me to eat. And I am just, this is amazing. I don't have food noise anymore. I'm not struggling with it because if you haven't really gathered here, my whole family has pretty much struggled with like binge eating and like poor relationships with food and so forth. But in general, he struggled with that. And so because he didn't have this food noise anymore and he was no longer struggling with this imbalance in his hunger hormones, and they were the medication he was on was a little bit too high of a dose, if you would ask me, but I'm not his doctor, and if I was, I would not be doing it to him. I would be lowering the dose, okay? But anyways, he lost like 70 pounds quick. I think it was around 70 pounds quick, and as soon as he came off of it, he was like struggling, y'all, struggling. I'm telling you, like the food noise was intense and he could not stop eating. And he was just like, I feel like I can't get satisfied. He gained all that weight back plus more, bestie. And that's very dangerous for someone that is diabetic, extremely dangerous. And he's 70 years old, y'all. So as a health coach, I'm panicking. I'm like, Dad, please just listen to me. So now homeboy is on a health journey. He has lost 23 pounds and he's not on Ozempic or anything like that. He's scared to get back on it because he swears the medication is what did it to him. And I'm like, Dad, you have to understand what's in the medication. At the end of the day, yes, I think the dosage was too high, but I also think that you need to take a little bit of responsibility here because there is responsibility. There's choices that have been made, okay. But anyways, he's just doing his thing, and I'm very proud of him because he does have that ability to do it. Yes, he is diabetic, but he has proven to himself multiple times that he can make these changes and make drastic improvements in his blood sugar and his overall medical condition, for sure. And plus, he has a health coach, top transformation coach in the US as a daughter. If he just utilizes me as like what I would be using me like no other, but you know how that goes. But anyways, men are hard-headed. Now, another thing that studies show is that imbalances are back and sometimes worse than ever. And yes, that is just kind of like what I've been saying. Like, just like when you come off birth control, you have these imbalances come back out. Same thing with the GLP-1. You have to think of a GLP-1 as a tool and not a magic solution. Because if it was magic, then it would be solved and fixed forever, right? Like, you would be able to balance out your body and be on this medication for, whatever time that's needed to balance everything out. And then as soon as you get off of it, it stays balanced. Unfortunately, that's not the situation here. That is why they recommend a lot of people stay on it like long term, because they do understand, without technically saying it, is that all these things that you were already previously struggling with do come rushing back. But the big thing here is that if you take this medication and you are building muscle and you are like doing all the things that I've talked about, your overall chances of having this like massive regain and massive imbalance in your body and everything else is less than, because you're already implementing all the right things that you need to be implementing and you're keeping that going. So you're probably still going to have a little bit of a phase there when you first come off. That's a little bit of a struggle, but you're going to know how to move through it. This is where, again, a coach especially is very important. I mean, I would have to say, if you're on a GLP-1, a coach is something I personally, if you want to get the max benefits from being on a GLP-1s, I'm not just saying this because I'm a coach. I hate saying it, but like, if I wasn't a coach, I still would be saying this to you. But if you want to get the max benefits and ensure that you are doing all the right things, and when you do come off of it and you're able to transition into it, and then what life looks like afterwards when you're off of it and it's out of your system, now we're in reality, like that's a lot to go through, and you need to make sure that you are implementing the right things to do that well. So you're not regaining everything back and you're not back to square one, because you know how frustrating it is to lose a ton of weight and to gain it all back again. Bestie, I know you know. I've done that so many times. I mean, I've never lost more than 20 pounds on my own, besides my 120 pound weight loss journey. But before then, I only naturally could lose like 20 pounds or on my own. Actually, not even naturally. That was like using phentermine or whatever, but I couldn't ever lose more than that and whatnot before then. And I always gained it back plus double. It was never like a casual, just like gain back. It was always double. And a lot of times it did come down to the fact that the food noise was louder and my, struggles with binge eating were full force, because it is hard. We can sit here and tell ourselves all day long, oh, that's not going to be me. I'm going to stay strong. I'm going to do this. But like, when you are going from not having much of an appetite to now, and especially if you've been experiencing that for months on months on months, and then now it hits you like a freight train where you were hungry 24/7 and that imbalance is back, it's going to feel probably 5 times as hard as it was before starting it. Does that make sense? Okay. I know y'all know what I'm saying. Like, when you kind of have a break from something and then it comes back, it's going to feel so much worse because it's not easy to go through. It's like not easy to stay strong and to be like, ignore your own mind and ignore what your body's feeling. Like, hunger is like extremely painful, right? And so anyways, that is why implementing all the right things is super important. Now, I do want to talk about why GLP-1s are not for everybody. And I'm going to use me as an example here. I have PCOS. Like I said, I would have been the perfect candidate for a GLP-1 because I have PCOS. Last year, I was insulin resistant because of the rush of my PCOS that came to me. That's a long story. The main reason why I was insulin resistant wasn't because of just my PCOS. It was mainly because of me contracting H. pylori that then gave me leaky gut. So whether that been from sushi or eating at a restaurant where someone didn't wash their hands and they literally got feces in their food, in my food, and then I ate it. Anyways, basically my gut health was trash from contracting H. pylori. Sucked going through. But I also had leaky gut. So my body was not absorbing the vitamins and minerals and the amino acids the way that it was supposed to. And everything entering into, basically everything that I was eating was being signaled as like a toxin in my body that wasn't supposed to be there, because that's what leaky gut is. Okay. Like it gets in your bloodstream, and then now you have like this foreign object or signal that's going off in your body saying, this isn't good. Something is not great in our body. We need to get it out. We need to fix whatever's happening here. It's like a malfunction in the body. So that is why I actually became insulin resistant, just for context there. I'm going to have a whole episode about that because that's a deep story that would take a lot of details going into. But anyways, I personally would not be someone that would take a GLP-1. And this is why. I wouldn't want to take it forever. And I wouldn't want my PCOS symptoms being managed because of the medication. So when I was going through my whole journey of balancing out my PCOS, getting an actual cycle back, getting to where my body was actually ovulating, I literally went from, hey, you might not be able to have any kids, like you need to mentally prepare yourself for that, to I'm hella fertile and I can have kids. Now, I do have hit or miss months, sometimes where my body doesn't fully ovulate. It ovulates, but the egg gets stuck in the follicular phase and creates a cyst on my ovary. But that's usually due to high stress. Again, a whole another episode. I'm going to actually talk about a whole breakdown of PCOS and so forth, because that's another thing that I think we all struggle with in fully understanding. But I wouldn't simply take a GLP-1 because I wouldn't want to take it forever. I wouldn't want my body to rely on something to balance it out. I knew that one day I would need to balance it out myself, and I would need to figure out what I would need to do to balance it out. Now, there are multiple levels of PCOS, and I always kind of say there's tiers to PCOS. There's PCOS that can be basically really managed and is not that crucial just simply because you're insulin resistant. So when we can reverse your insulin resistance, then you are managing your PCOS. Then there's PCOS that's a little bit more stubborn. This is kind of where I fall, to where you're regular, but you are so sensitive. Like if you have any stressful days around your ovulation, then you might not have a full cycle where your body is doing exactly what it needs to do after that egg is released. And so it can, again, result in cysts on your ovaries. It can, of course, result in higher risk of miscarriages. This is where it's more picky, but it also means that you have to be on your A game. Okay, you have to be on your A game to keep your body regulated. And if you don't pour into yourself, your body's pretty much going to tell you, because your PCOS symptoms will really start shining again. But this is still manageable. This PCOS is the PCOS that no matter what someone is doing, I am talking about, they have been on a journey of doing all the right things, nutritionally, workout, sleep, water. They have poured and poured and poured, and they know for 100% certainty that they're doing all these things, but their body still will not do what it needs to do. This is a severe case of PCOS, and this is where a lot of people who end up not being able to conceive at all, live. This is where PCOS, where you have intense like facial hair and your symptoms are very, very intensified. This right here, this woman deserves to be on a GLP-1, because anyone that is living in PCOS symptoms understands how consuming it can be. Me compared to what this severe case had to go through is like minimum. Like this severe case is consuming. This is something that would be extremely difficult to live in and extremely difficult to go day by day managing and living in. So a GLP-1 is so perfect for a person like that. Like a GLP-1 gives that person freedom. It helps them balance out their body. And I kind of want to get emotional because I know how hard it is to have PCOS. And I know how difficult it can be. But at least I have an understanding and I know what it's like to be free from PCOS symptoms. These people don't get that privilege. And this isn't just a thing that I, of course, have, witnessed, but this is also something that my functional medicine doctor has also talked about with me, that no matter what someone has done, I'm talking about they're doing all the right things and whatever, and their body's still not responding in any shape or form. I mean, this is when a GLP-1 would be extremely beneficial for a bestie. And I couldn't imagine how life-changing that would be for that person. And so at the end of the day, it is your body, your choice. And I'm always going to be like, bestie, pop off, you do you. But bestie, I'm also going to be the one that's going to be like your big sister here and say that if you are not caring for your body and you're not pouring into these essential habits, baby, you're going to find yourself in a pit that is so dark, that is so hard to crawl out of, and you're going to regret it so much. You are. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for anybody. I am telling you this because I actually deeply care about the women listening to this. I actually care what happens to people's health, going on through afterwards, because I know what it's like to struggle with a lot of these factors that are being talked about in this episode. I am like living proof in pretty much all of them. So my biggest takeaway here is not everyone taking a GLP-1 needs to be fit in the same circle, because not everyone is doing what they are supposed to be doing, which is why you see major horror stories. Then also on the flip side, major success stories. This is also something that you need to keep in mind, is that GLP-1s are not for everyone. Sometimes your body will have severe side effects, and that is because of multiple factors, but mainly for those who already struggle with a poor digestion or are struggling like with their gut health. This is going to be something that's like, a GLP-1 might not be your bestie for this, but main thing here is that if you are on a GLP-1, my best advice, I'm just going to be completely real with you, have a coach. If you are not knowledgeable in nutrition and you are not knowledgeable in workouts and how to effectively do all the things that I talked about in this message, have a coach. And this is not no sales pitch. This ain't no, Coach Mary doing this GLP-1 topic because she's trying to get clients. No, I'm not. I would love to coach you, but that's not why we're doing this episode. I'm just trying to be real with you because this isn't talked about enough in a way that's educational. You hear influencers just yapping about something that they barely know about, and maybe that is to get people as clients. But that's not what I'm doing here, okay? This is educational purposes only. And I hope that y'all learned a lot here. I hope that this makes a lot of sense. And I hope that if this is someone that's like taking a GLP-1 right now listening to this, I hope that this fires you up and says, you know what? Heck yeah, Coach Mare. Heck yeah, Coach Mare. I'm going to pour into my lifestyle changes. I'm going to do all the right things. I'm going to use this as a tool, and I'm going to make sure that I am on the success side of this medication. I do not want you to find yourself on the other side, because the other side be dark. Nobody want to be on that other side. Okay? Nobody wants that. So protect your future, protect your health, and do it right, girl. But anyways, I think that's it. I think that's a wrap. By the way, I kind of skiddied right into this, but I'm going to be doing podcasts every Tuesday. I did start off saying every Tuesday, Thursdays. I am so sorry. But now that I'm doing videos with my podcast, I can't just chatty chat and then put it on my Spotify. There's a lot more of an editing process that goes with it. And I'm not that cool to have an editor do it for me yet. So for now, we'll see each other every Tuesday. And just make sure you're here. Comment, share, please, so I don't feel like I'm talking to nobody. It would mean a lot. Subscribe. Also, if you can rate my channel too, I would love you forever. Is giving begging, is giving desperate, and I'm glad it's giving those things because I am desperate and I am begging. Love you guys and see y'all next time. Peace!